What billionaires know that you don't. What if I told you that the difference between you and a billionaire isn't luck, talent, or intelligence, but something far more subtle, far more powerful, and far more accessible than you think? What if everything you've been taught about wealth, about success, about opportunity, about what is or isn't possible for your life, has been shaped by invisible rules you never agreed to follow? Today, I want to show you the truth behind those rules. I want to pull back the curtain on the mindset, the emotional patterns, the inner architecture that billionaires use without even thinking about it, and that you can begin applying in your life right now. Because once you see what they see, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand how they think, you start moving differently. You start choosing differently. You start becoming someone who attracts success instead of chasing it. So let's get straight to the point. No fluff, no filler. Just the truth about what billionaires know that you don't yet. Topic 1. The billionaire mind never operates from the present, only from the future. Here's something most people never realize. Billionaires don't live in the present. They act in the present, but they don't think in the present. Their mind is always positioned a few steps ahead, almost like they're mentally time traveling into the future, reading it, and then returning with instructions. It's a completely different way of processing life, and unless you understand this shift, it's almost impossible to play the same game they're playing. Think about Jeff Bezos in the early days of Amazon. Everyone else saw books, a simple online bookstore, a cute internet idea. But Bezos didn't see the present moment at all. He saw the entire infrastructure of the digital economy before the world knew what digital economy even meant. He saw warehouses across continents, global logistics networks, algorithmic systems, and millions of customers who hadn't even been born yet. While everyone else was debating whether the internet would survive, Bezos was already building a future that felt inevitable to him. That's the point. To billionaires, the future doesn't feel like a question. It feels like a decision. This is where most people get stuck. They interpret life through the lens of what is. Billionaires interpret life through the lens of what will be. And when you think like that, your actions change instantly. You stop making decisions based on fear or convenience, and you start making decisions based on alignment with the future you are committed to creating. It's almost like the mind becomes a magnet, constantly reshaping the present to match a future it already believes in. Elon Musk is another perfect example. Whether you admire him or not is irrelevant. What matters is the pattern. When he talks about colonizing Mars, creating a multi-planetary species, developing neural interfaces, or building the world's largest electric car company, he isn't imagining what could be. He's talking about what will be, and he communicates it with the certainty of someone describing next week's weather. The clarity with which he sees the future shapes his ability to take risks that would paralyze 99% of people. It's not courage, it's not recklessness, it's alignment with a vision so vivid that the present becomes nothing more than the starting point. This ability to mentally jump forward in time is one of the secret engines of wealth creation. Because when your mind is anchored in the future, your emotions stop reacting to the noise of the present. Setbacks don't feel like failures, delays don't feel like dead ends, criticism doesn't feel like danger. Everything that happens in the present is simply data, just information you use to refine the path toward a future you already believe exists. Think of Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx and the youngest self-made female billionaire. When she began, she had no investors, no fashion experience, no credibility, and no one in the industry who believed in her. But she kept operating from a future state, a mental image of women around the world wearing a product that didn't exist yet. She spoke about it, moved toward it, worked for it, and thought within it. Her present reality had zero evidence of success, yet her mind was anchored to a future where her idea was already a global phenomenon. That's why she kept going. That's why she kept knocking on doors. That's why she didn't collapse under the weight of doubt. In her mind, she wasn't chasing a dream. She was walking towards something that already felt real. So let me ask you something, and be brutally honest with yourself. How often do you make decisions based only on what you see right now? How often do you limit yourself because your present conditions don't match your desires? How often do you talk yourself out of something simply because the evidence hasn't shown up yet? This is the trap that keeps most people stuck. They wait for proof before they begin. Billionaires begin before the proof exists. They generate the proof through action, belief, and relentless alignment with the future they've chosen to build. The evidence appears because they commit, not the other way around. You have that same ability. You may not have billions of dollars yet, but you have a mind capable of projecting itself into the future and pulling that future into the present. Every time you visualize where you want to be, every time you make a decision based on the person you are becoming instead of the person you have been, you're aligning with the same mental mechanism billionaires use. The truth is, your life expands or contracts based on the future you hold in your mind. When your vision is small, opportunities feel small. When your vision is unclear, obstacles feel final. But when your mind locks onto a future worth fighting for, a future that excites you, challenges you, and demands a higher version of yourself, something shifts. You stop operating from survival and start operating from creation. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start asking, "How will I?" You stop waiting for permission and start moving with intention. This is the beginning of everything. The seed of wealth, the spark of opportunity, the doorway to prosperity. The billionaire mind doesn't wait for the future. It chooses it. It builds it. It commits to it long before the world can see it. And today, you have the chance to begin doing the same. To hold a vision so clear, so alive, so real, that the present moment becomes nothing more than the ground you stand on as you walk toward it. Topic 2. Billionaires see. Opportunity where most people see limitation. Have you ever noticed how two people can look at the exact same situation and walk away with completely different conclusions? One sees danger, impossibility, and risk, while the other sees potential, leverage, and a doorway into something bigger. This isn't luck or optimism. It's a trained mental habit, a way of interpreting reality that billionaires use every single day. If you understand this shift, you will stop feeling trapped by your circumstances and start creating opportunities from them, just like the world's wealthiest people do. Think about Warren Buffett. When the majority of investors panic, he becomes calm. When the market crashes and people rush to sell, he sees a clearance sale. When others see instability, he sees a rare chance to buy undervalued assets and multiply wealth. This isn't because Buffett has some kind of magical intuition. It's because he has mastered the art of maintaining clarity when everyone else is blinded by fear. He knows that opportunity rarely appears with flashing lights or perfect conditions. Opportunity is usually disguised as uncertainty, discomfort, or even chaos. Most people back away from challenge because they think challenge means danger. Billionaires lean toward challenge because they know challenge means leverage. They understand that inside every problem, there is value waiting to be extracted. Value that the fearful will never even see. And this isn't just financial. This applies to mindset, relationships, career, creativity, spirituality, everything. The way you interpret limitation determines the size of the opportunities you allow into your life. Let's take Oprah Winfrey as an example. Her entire journey is a masterclass in transforming limitation into power. She came from a background of poverty, trauma, and rejection, circumstances that would have crushed most people. But Oprah did something different. Instead of internalizing limitation, she mined it. She extracted wisdom from her wounds. She used adversity as fuel, as insight, as emotional intelligence. She leaned into the very things that tried to break her and turned them into the foundation of her empire. That's what billionaires do. They alchemize life. They turn emotional metal into gold by refusing to let limitation define them. You see this pattern again and again in the stories of the world's wealthiest individuals. Elon Musk was days away from bankruptcy while building Tesla and SpaceX simultaneously. Most people would have shut everything down. He didn't. He saw possibility. He saw a breakthrough wrapped inside chaos. He saw that the mess surrounding him wasn't a collapse. It was a transition, a painful but necessary phase of growth. He held on to the opportunity so tightly that the limitation eventually dissolved. That's what vision does. That's what belief does. That's what commitment does. The difference between a billionaire and the average person is not the amount of money they have. It's the meaning they attach to difficulty. Most people experience a setback and think, this is a sign to stop. Billionaires experience the same setback and think, this is the price of admission. Most people encounter a barrier and say, this means I can't. Billionaires see the barrier and say, this means others won't, which gives me an advantage. Your mindset around limitation determines your entire life trajectory. If you see limitation as proof that success isn't possible, you will shrink, you will hesitate, you will talk yourself out of the very opportunities that are trying to reach you. But if you see limitation as a sign that you're on the right path, that you are stretching yourself into a new level of existence, then everything becomes different. Limitation becomes a clue, a message, a compass pointing toward your next level of potential. Look at companies like Airbnb. When founders Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia launched the idea, investors laughed. They said no one would ever let strangers sleep in their homes. The market looked too small, the concept too strange, the risk too high. But Chesky and Gebbia didn't see limitation. They saw a massive, untapped opportunity hidden inside the way people travel, connect, and share space. They didn't wait for approval. They didn't wait for the world to validate them. They pushed forward anyway, and today Airbnb is worth tens of billions of dollars, all because they interpreted limitation differently than the rest of the world. This is the inner shift you must make if you want to build real prosperity. You have to stop assuming that difficulty means defeat. You have to stop expecting opportunity to arrive in a perfect package. You have to start recognizing that the moments you feel most uncertain, most stretched, most challenged, are often the exact moments where life is offering you a hidden door. But if your mind is conditioned to expect ease, you'll miss it. If your mind thinks limitation is final, you'll walk away. If your mind believes you aren't capable, you won't even try. Billionaires aren't special. They're strategic. They train their minds to look beyond the surface. They ask, what else could this mean? Where is the value inside this discomfort? What can I build from this that others can't see yet? And this perspective becomes a superpower because it transforms the world into a landscape of possibilities that most people never access. You can begin this shift right now. Start by observing the way you react to challenges. Notice the stories you tell yourself when something feels hard. Pay attention to the thoughts that arise when life tells you not yet. Ask yourself, if a billionaire were in my position right now, how would they interpret this? And then act from that perspective. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels unfamiliar. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, difficulty will no longer intimidate you. It will activate you, because you will finally understand what they know. Limitation isn't a stop sign. It's a signal. It's a doorway. It's the universe asking, are you ready to grow? And when you respond with courage, creativity, and willingness, opportunity appears. It always does. Topic 3. Billionaires don't work for money. They make money work for them. There is a moment, a specific turning point, when people stop chasing money and start commanding it. Most never reach this point. They spend their whole lives working harder, pushing more, trading hours for income, believing that success is tied to effort and exhaustion. Billionaires know something radically different. Money is not earned through labor alone. Money expands through alignment, through systems, through leverage, through intelligent positioning. The wealthy don't work more. They work differently. And until you understand this shift, prosperity will feel like a race you can never win. Think about someone like Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle. He didn't build his empire by clocking in more hours than everyone else. He built systems. He built intellectual property. He built a structure that multiplied value even when he wasn't in the room. That's the difference. Most people focus on output. Billionaires focus on infrastructure. They create assets, businesses, patents, investments, intellectual frameworks that generate income continuously. And because these assets work 24 hours a day, money becomes something that grows while they sleep, while they think, while they innovate. It becomes a partner, not a prize. Take another example, Mark Cuban. As a young entrepreneur, he already understood something fundamental. You shouldn't work for money. You should work to acquire skills, information, and leverage that eventually allows you to command money instead of depend on it. When he sold his first company for millions, it wasn't because he spent more hours grinding than anyone else. It was because he positioned himself strategically within an opportunity that scaled. This is the core idea. Billionaires think in terms of scalability. They refuse to pursue anything that has a ceiling. They choose paths where growth is exponential, not linear. Most people treat money like a reward. Billionaires treat money like a tool that amplifies choices, a tool that buys time, freedom, and margin, a tool that allows them to build bigger, bolder things. This relationship with money is emotional, psychological, and deeply spiritual. It's a shift in identity. Instead of seeing themselves as someone who earns money, they see themselves as someone who creates ecosystems where money naturally flows. Look at real estate moguls like Donald Bren or Stephen Ross. They don't work for every dollar they have. Their wealth comes from assets that produce cash flow, appreciate in value, generate equity, and create long-term stability. They understand something most people overlook. The goal isn't to accumulate money, but to accumulate things that produce money. That's what changes everything. Because once you start focusing on assets over effort, your financial life moves into a new dimension. And here's where the deeper truth comes in. This shift is available to anyone, not just billionaires, not just CEOs, anyone. But most people never allow themselves to make it because they've been trained to think small. They've been trained to believe that money is scarce, that wealth is for the lucky, that prosperity is unpredictable. They've been conditioned to work for survival instead of strategy. Their entire financial identity is shaped by fear rather than possibility. Think about the way society teaches us to think about money. From childhood, we are told to follow rules, study hard, get a job, work for stability, avoid risk, stay comfortable. But billionaires break these rules constantly. They chase growth instead of comfort. They chase wisdom instead of approval. They chase opportunity instead of safety. And because their financial decisions aren't rooted in fear, they're able to create massive wealth in ways that feel almost invisible to the average person. Consider the rise of tech billionaires like the founders of Google. Larry Page and Sergey Brin didn't plan to make billions. They planned to solve a problem at scale. They built something that could operate independently from their physical presence. They built something that multiplied. That's what wealthy minds do. They engineer leverage. They place themselves in environments where effort is multiplied instead of consumed. This is the essence of wealth creation. Leverage is greater than labor. Systems are greater than sacrifice. Strategy is greater than struggle. Billionaires understand that the goal is not to work more hours, but to increase the value of each hour. They invest in themselves, their knowledge, their networks, and their ideas because they know that the right idea, the right opportunity, the right moment, combined with the right mindset, can produce more wealth than years of traditional work. Look at Jay-Z, a powerful example of someone who transitioned from hustling for money to making money hustle for him. He didn't become a billionaire from music alone. He used music as a platform to build brands, partnerships, investments, and ownership. He built Rock Nation. He invested in tech companies. He launched luxury products. Every move was designed to create another stream of income that could operate independently. Instead of trading time for money, he multiplied value across industries. That's leverage. That's the mindset shift. If you want to step into your own prosperity, this is the shift you must make. Stop thinking like an employee in your own life and start thinking like an architect. Build systems, build value, build things that continue to grow even when your effort pauses. Whether it's learning new skills, investing, creating digital assets, starting a business, designing intellectual content, or developing expertise, the key is to move your energy into creation instead of reaction. You don't need millions to start thinking like a billionaire. You need clarity. You need intention. You need courage. You need the willingness to transform your relationship with money from dependence to partnership. You need to recognize that money expands when you stop chasing it and start directing it. Money becomes abundant when you stop fearing it and start understanding it. Money becomes a tool for impact, legacy, and freedom when you stop treating it like something outside of you and start treating it like something that responds to your mindset. The moment you stop working for money and start making money work for you, everything in your life begins to shift. Your stress decreases, your confidence increases, your decisions become sharper, your opportunities become larger. And slowly, piece by piece, your financial identity aligns with the same principles that billionaires instinctively live by every day. Topic 4. Billionaires master the emotional game. Long before they master the financial one, if you stripped away every business, every investment, every asset, and every dollar from a billionaire, they would eventually rebuild everything. Not because of luck, not because of connections, but because of emotional mastery. Wealth is not built through numbers alone. It is built through the emotional stability required to make powerful decisions under pressure. Billionaires have learned to navigate fear, uncertainty, criticism, risk, doubt, and discomfort with a level of inner strength that most people never develop. They didn't start wealthy, they became wealthy because they learned how to master themselves. Here's the truth most people avoid. Money is emotional. Success is emotional. Prosperity is emotional. The world teaches you strategies, but strategies fail if your emotions collapse. If fear drives your decision-making, you will sabotage opportunities before they mature. If insecurity influences your choices, you will retreat the moment something feels unfamiliar. If impatience controls you, you will abandon long-term growth for short-term comfort. Billionaires know this, and that's why they invest more in emotional discipline than the average person invests in financial knowledge. Think about Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the most successful hedge funds in history. His entire life philosophy, his entire approach to wealth, leadership, and strategy is built around emotional clarity. He meditates daily. He practices radical transparency. He trains himself to detach from ego. Why? Because he knows that emotional turbulence clouds judgment. When you cannot master your emotions, you misinterpret reality. You make the wrong moves. You react when you should reflect. Dalio's wealth didn't come from the stock market alone. It came from the emotional intelligence required to navigate uncertainty with precision. Or look at Jack Ma. Before Alibaba became a global giant, he was rejected over and over again, from schools, employers, investors, and even his own peers. He once applied to KFC along with 24 other people. 23 were accepted. He was the only one rejected. But Jack Ma understood something powerful. Rejection is emotional, not logical. Rejection doesn't define you unless you allow it to. Instead of shrinking from rejection, he studied it. He turned emotional wounds into wisdom. He built resilience like a muscle. And that resilience is what allowed him to keep pushing until he built one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world. Most people crumble under emotional discomfort because they think discomfort means something is wrong. Billionaires interpret discomfort differently. They see it as a signal that they are entering a new level of growth. They lean into it. They build capacity. They strengthen their nervous system. They learn to stay grounded in situations that would overwhelm most people. This emotional endurance is one of their most valuable assets because it allows them to stay committed to long-term visions without being derailed by temporary storms. Think of Sarah Blakely again, the founder of Spanx. Before she became a billionaire, she spent years hearing no. She lived with rejection, skepticism, and laughter directed at her dreams. But she didn't internalize it. She mastered the emotional game by maintaining belief even when external validation was non-existent. She cultivated humor in difficult moments. She trained herself to see failure as data instead of defeat. This emotional intelligence eventually became the foundation of her empire. The emotional game shows up everywhere. Negotiating deals, taking risks, pitching ideas, making decisions, investing wisely, innovating under pressure, or continuing forward when results are slow. If your emotions control you, you will fall apart before your breakthrough arrives. If you control your emotions, you will reach a level of clarity and persistence that most people never access. Look at Elon Musk during the toughest years of Tesla and SpaceX. He was ridiculed by the media. Experts predicted failure. He faced lawsuits, production nightmares, and personal burnout. At one point, both companies were on the verge of collapse. Any emotionally fragile person would have walked away. But Musk didn't crumble. He compartmentalized. He focused on solutions instead of catastrophes. He mastered the emotional storm so that it didn't distort his decision-making. And because of that emotional discipline, both companies not only survived but became global powerhouses. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing feelings. Billionaires feel fear, frustration, disappointment, and stress just like everyone else. The difference is in how they respond. They don't allow emotions to dictate their actions. They train themselves to pause, breathe, analyze, and act with intention. They surround themselves with mentors, therapists, coaches, or routines that strengthen their emotional resilience. They understand that wealth amplifies responsibility, pressure, and complexity. And without emotional intelligence, everything collapses from the inside. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. Wealth responds to clarity, confidence, and energetic alignment. When your mind is chaotic, money avoids you. When your emotions are unstable, opportunities slip through your hands. But when you are grounded, intentional, calm, and aligned, you become magnetic. People trust you. Decisions become easier. Creativity flows. Solutions appear. Your mind becomes an instrument for prosperity instead of an obstacle to it. This is why some people with incredible talent never become wealthy. They lack emotional stability. They self-sabotage. They procrastinate. They chase validation. They give up too easily. They drown in overthinking. They fear judgment. They hesitate instead of execute. They panic instead of plan. Wealth is impossible without emotional mastery because money magnifies your inner patterns. If you are fragile, wealth falls through the cracks. If you are grounded, wealth grows in your hands. You can begin developing this mastery today. It starts with awareness, noticing your emotional triggers, watching the stories your mind creates when things get difficult, observing the fear that rises when you step into something new. Every moment of emotional discomfort is an opportunity to strengthen your inner foundation, to train your nervous system, to build the resilience required to hold more responsibility, more opportunity, more abundance. Your emotional capacity determines your financial capacity. The bigger your inner strength, the bigger the outer empire you can build. Billionaires don't get rich and then master their emotions. They master their emotions, and that's what allows them to get rich. Topic 5. Billionaires build powerful networks that multiply their value. One of the greatest illusions in the modern world is the belief that success is an individual pursuit. People love the myth of the lone genius, the self-made millionaire, the visionary who climbs the mountain alone. But that is not how billionaires operate, not even close. The wealthiest and most influential individuals on Earth understand something that most people overlook. The right relationships expand your opportunities faster than any degree, any strategy, or any amount of hard work ever could. Billionaires are masters at cultivating networks, not superficial contacts, but high-value relationships that elevate their thinking, accelerate their growth, and multiply their results. There's a reason successful people tend to cluster together. There's a reason innovation hubs like Silicon Valley became epicenters of wealth creation. Human beings are influenced by proximity. You rise to the level of the environment you place yourself in. Billionaires deliberately construct environments that reinforce possibility, creativity, ambition, and excellence. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, stretch them, inspire them, and hold them to a higher standard. They don't wait for the right people to appear. They seek them. They build with them. They grow because of them. Look at the story of Steve Jobs and his relationship with people like Steve Wozniak, John Lasseter, and later on, Jony Ive. Apple didn't become a trillion-dollar company because of one brilliant man. It grew because Jobs surrounded himself with obsessive designers, visionary engineers, creative disruptors, and courageous thinkers. Jobs knew that the right minds amplify your own. He knew that one person alone could not build the future, but a powerful network of aligned, talented individuals could reshape the world. Or consider the PayPal Mafia, a group of early PayPal founders and employees including Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, Max Levchin, and others. After PayPal was acquired, this network went on to build Tesla, SpaceX, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, Palantir, and multiple billion-dollar funds. They weren't just colleagues. They were a collective of minds who reinforced possibility for one another. They invested in each other's companies. They shared resources. They opened doors. They multiplied each other's success. This is the hidden truth. Billionaires don't accumulate relationships. They cultivate alliances. They don't network to take. They network to build. They understand that every person in their circle represents access to new ideas, new opportunities, new knowledge, and new perspectives. And this access is priceless because it accelerates growth in ways that no individual effort can match. Think about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Their partnership became legendary not because they were similar, but because they were different in complementary ways. Buffett brought intuition, pattern recognition, and investment instinct. Munger brought philosophical clarity, rational thinking, and mental models that Buffett openly credits for transforming his approach to decision-making. Together, they formed a mental ecosystem that amplified their intelligence and sustained their empire for over 5 decades. Their wealth grew because their partnership elevated them beyond what either could have achieved alone. This is the emotional and psychological power of a billionaire-level network. It elevates you into a new identity. When you surround yourself with people who think bigger, move smarter, and build boldly, your own limitations dissolve. You start to normalize ambition. You start to internalize confidence. You begin to act on opportunities instead of questioning them. The people around you shape your frequency, your energy, your standards, your expectations. Billionaires curate this frequency with intention. But here's where most people get stuck. They think networking is about impressing others, selling themselves, or pretending to be something they're not. Billionaires, however, approach relationships with authenticity and long-term thinking. They focus on value, not vanity. They ask deeper questions. How can I support this person? How can I elevate them? How can we create something meaningful together? This is why their relationships become deep, strategic, and enduring. Look at Oprah Winfrey's inner circle. She didn't rise alone. She built a network filled with powerful storytellers, producers, spiritual teachers, entrepreneurs, psychologists, and visionaries. Her success expanded through collaboration. She intentionally aligned with people who shared her values of empowerment, healing, creativity, and impact. And because her network reflected the person she wanted to become, it accelerated her evolution into a global icon. Wealth flows through networks. Ideas flow through networks. Opportunities flow through networks. If your environment is small, your results will be small. If your environment is stagnant, your ideas will be stagnant. If your environment is filled with people who doubt themselves, criticize ambition, or fear risk, you will unconsciously adopt their limitations. But when your circle is filled with thinkers, creators, builders, and doers, your mindset transforms automatically. This is why so many wealthy individuals say that their biggest breakthroughs came from conversations, introductions, or collaborations with the right person at the right time. A single relationship can lead to a business partnership, an investment opportunity, a new idea, or a complete shift in perspective. And often, that one connection becomes the catalyst for an entirely new chapter of life. You can start building your network the same way, not by trying to impress people, but by becoming someone worth aligning with, by developing your gifts, by being reliable, trustworthy, curious, and generous, by seeking conversations that expand your thinking instead of conversations that drain your energy, by placing yourself in environments where ambition is celebrated, not mocked, by choosing relationships that nourish your growth rather than sabotage it. You don't need to know a billionaire to think like one. You simply need to build a network that elevates you, a network that reflects your potential, not your fears, a network that encourages your dreams instead of shrinking them, a network that holds you accountable to the highest version of yourself. Because the truth is simple, wealth is rarely created in isolation. Billionaires rise because they stand on the foundation of powerful relationships. And once you understand this, once you begin building your own circle of expansion, your path to success accelerates in ways you can't even imagine yet. Topic 6. Billionaires think in terms of scale, not survival. There is a point in every successful person's journey where they must make a decision. Am I building something to survive, or am I building something to scale? Most people never make it past survival mode. They make choices based on what will keep them safe, what will protect them from uncertainty, what will give them a predictable outcome in the shortest time possible. Billionaires do the exact opposite. They make decisions based on expansion, impact, longevity, and scalability. They aren't just building businesses, they're building ecosystems, movements, and generational legacies. This is one of the most important psychological differences between billionaires and everyone else. And once you internalize it, your entire approach to success transforms. Think about the early days of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg didn't build it to be a small, profitable website. He built it with the idea that it could connect the entire planet. He didn't operate from a mindset of survival or fear. He operated from a mindset of scale. Even when the company had little revenue, even when the infrastructure was fragile, even when competitors were emerging everywhere, Zuckerberg focused on expansion first. He knew that once the foundation was large enough, monetization would follow naturally. And he was right. That's the billionaire mindset. Build for scale, not for short-term comfort. Look at Jeff Bezos again. Amazon didn't make profit for years, and critics mocked the company relentlessly. They said it was reckless, irresponsible, even foolish. But Bezos wasn't thinking like a small business owner trying to survive month to month. He was thinking like a visionary architect designing a system capable of dominating the global marketplace. He reinvested almost everything back into growth, logistics, innovation, and customer experience. He was building for scale. And because of that, Amazon became one of the most influential companies in human history. Billionaires play a longer game. They aren't making decisions based on what will get them through the next month. They're making decisions based on what will shape the next decade, or the next century. This long-term thinking is what allows them to take risks that seem irrational to the average person. It's what allows them to endure temporary losses for massive eventual gains. It's what allows them to stay calm during storms, because they aren't focused on the storm. They're focused on the horizon beyond it. Most people limit themselves because they think in terms of immediate need. They ask questions like, how can I make enough money this month? How can I avoid failure? How can I reduce risk? Billionaires ask different questions. How can I scale this idea globally? How can I multiply impact without multiplying effort? How can I create something that continues growing without me? These questions lead to completely different outcomes. Look at companies like Uber, Airbnb, and Netflix. Their founders didn't operate from a mindset of survival. They didn't say, let's build something small and safe. They thought in terms of massive scale from day one. Uber wasn't just a ride-hailing service. It was a transportation revolution. Airbnb wasn't just a way to rent rooms. It was a global hospitality ecosystem. Netflix wasn't just a DVD rental service. It was the future of entertainment, distribution, and content creation. These founders weren't chasing money. They were chasing scale. And money followed scale naturally. This is where the greatest internal shift must happen for anyone seeking prosperity. You must stop thinking like someone trying to get by and start thinking like someone trying to build something that outlives you. Survival thinking keeps you small. Scale thinking makes you unstoppable. Survival thinking makes you reactive. Scale thinking makes you visionary. Survival thinking limits your creativity. Scale thinking expands it endlessly. When you think in terms of survival, every decision feels heavy, emotional, and risky. You feel restricted. You hesitate. You doubt yourself. But when you think in terms of scale, decisions become strategic. You start looking at opportunities in terms of potential instead of immediate payoff. You start asking yourself, what version of me would be required to build this? And that question alone changes your entire identity. Think of Elon Musk when he envisioned Tesla. The idea wasn't to build a profitable car company. The idea was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's scale. That's vision. That's the kind of goal that pulls you forward even when circumstances are brutal. And because the goal was so large, it demanded innovation that reshaped entire industries. Or look at companies like Google. Larry Page once said that he constantly asked himself whether projects had the potential to reach billions of people. If the answer was no, the project wasn't big enough. That is the mindset of scale, the mindset that pushes humanity forward. Billionaires are not rewarded because they think better. They are rewarded because they think bigger. This principle doesn't only apply to business. It applies to personal growth, creativity, spirituality, health, and purpose. When you think small, life responds with smallness. When you think big, truly big, life rearranges itself to match your scale of vision. Your energy shifts, your identity evolves, your confidence grows. You stop trying to survive and start trying to expand. Scale thinking also changes the way you handle failure. Most people treat failure like a final verdict. Billionaires treat failure like data, like a correction from the universe. When your vision is huge, failure becomes a tiny moment in a much bigger journey. It loses its emotional weight. It stops controlling you. Because deep down, you know that every setback is simply part of the process of scaling something meaningful. And here's the most liberating truth of all. You don't need millions of dollars to start thinking in terms of scale. You need imagination. You need courage. You need intention. You need the willingness to stop shrinking yourself to fit the world you know, and start expanding yourself to match the world you want to create. What if your purpose is bigger than your fears? What if your ideas are meant to reach far more people than you've ever allowed yourself to imagine? What if your capacity is 10 times greater than your current identity believes? Scale thinking opens doors that survival thinking doesn't even know exist. When you shift into this mindset, something beautiful happens. You begin to attract opportunities aligned with your larger vision. You meet people who expand your thinking. You make decisions that create momentum. You stop settling for the life you have and start designing the life you want. This is what billionaires know. Survival is not the goal. Expansion is. Survival is temporary. Legacy is eternal. And when you think in terms of scale, you step into a version of yourself capable of achieving things that once felt impossible. Topic 7. Billionaires make decisions with speed, clarity, and absolute commitment. If there is one trait that separates billionaires from the rest of the world more than money, education, background, or opportunity, it is the way they make decisions. Most people hesitate, they overthink, they freeze, they second-guess themselves until the opportunity disappears. Billionaires, on the other hand, move with extraordinary decisiveness. They make clear, fast, intentional decisions, and once a decision is made, they commit fully. They don't waver, they don't doubt themselves. They don't let fear negotiate the terms of their destiny. They understand that every moment spent in hesitation is a moment where someone else is moving forward. Think about Richard Branson. His entire empire was built on decision-making speed. When he heard that passengers were stranded due to a canceled flight, he didn't wait for approval or logistics. He rented a plane on the spot, offered seats to the stranded travelers, and the Virgin Airlines legacy was born. He didn't spend days analyzing market conditions or debating whether he had the experience to start an airline. He made a decision, acted immediately, and figured out the details afterward. That's the billionaire mindset. Clarity first, action second, refinement third. Most people believe they need certainty before making a decision. Billionaires understand that certainty doesn't come before action. It comes as a result of action. You gain clarity by moving, not by waiting. Waiting is what kills opportunity. Waiting is what drains momentum. Waiting is what allows fear to grow stronger and logic to become foggy. Hesitation has cost more people their dreams than failure ever has. Look at the founders of Instagram, Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. When they realized their initial app, Bourbon, wasn't working, they didn't cling to it out of fear or attachment. They made a bold, immediate decision to pivot the entire company toward a single feature: photo sharing. That decision, made quickly and decisively, transformed a failing startup into a billion-dollar company acquired by Facebook. They didn't over-explain, over-analyze, or overthink. They trusted their intuition, made a choice, and moved forward with total commitment. Or consider the speed at which Jeff Bezos operates. Amazon is famous for something he calls high-velocity decision-making. The idea is simple: make decisions fast, even if they are imperfect. Bezos understands that the loss from a slow decision is often far greater than the loss from an incorrect decision. You can fix an imperfect action. You can't recover the time lost from hesitation. This philosophy is one of the hidden engines behind Amazon's dominance. This level of decisiveness becomes a psychological superpower. It creates momentum, and momentum is priceless. The moment you decide, the universe responds. Opportunities appear, resources align, people show up. New information reveals itself. But none of this happens when you are stuck at the crossroads, trying to mentally simulate every possible outcome before you move. Billionaires know that outcomes are shaped by movement, not by thought alone. Decision-making speed is not recklessness. It is clarity. It is trusting your judgment because you trust your ability to adapt, adjust, and learn. Billionaires don't make decisions because they believe they are perfect. They make decisions because they believe in their ability to handle whatever happens next. That belief, that emotional certainty, is one of the deepest forms of personal power. Let's look at Sarah Blakely again. When she invented Spanx, she didn't wait for experts to validate the idea. She didn't wait for someone to tell her it was brilliant. She didn't wait for the right moment, because there is no right moment. She trusted her desire. She trusted her intuition. She trusted that the idea came to her for a reason. That clarity led her to make decisions at moments when most people would have slowed down out of fear. That decisiveness multiplied her results and allowed her to break into an industry she knew nothing about. Elon Musk is another perfect example. Whether you agree with his strategies or not, one thing is undeniable: he acts with extraordinary decisiveness. He makes billion-dollar moves in minutes. He takes risks that would terrify most entrepreneurs. He decides quickly because he sees the big picture. His decisions are not emotional reactions. They are strategic commitments. He trusts himself, not because he assumes he will never fail, but because he knows he will always keep moving until he succeeds. The truth is, indecision is one of the most expensive habits in the world. It costs people opportunities, relationships, income, growth, and time, the most valuable resource of all. When you hesitate, the universe hesitates with you. When you doubt, life mirrors that doubt. But when you decide with clarity and intention, everything begins to accelerate. People feel your certainty. They respond to it. They trust it. They want to follow someone who knows where they're going. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. Decisions generate energetic momentum. When you decide, you align your mind, emotions, and actions with a specific outcome. You send a signal to the universe that says, "I am ready." Without this energetic alignment, manifestation cannot occur. You cannot attract abundance from a place of hesitation. You cannot create prosperity from a place of self-doubt. You must choose the path before the path reveals itself. This doesn't mean every decision will be comfortable. In fact, the most important decisions often feel terrifying because they require you to become someone you haven't been before. They require a leap into the unknown. But billionaires embrace this leap. They understand that transformation never happens inside the comfort zone. Growth requires movement, and movement begins with a choice. So let me ask you something. How many opportunities have you missed because you waited too long? How many dreams have you delayed because you were trying to be sure? How many moments of momentum have you lost because you were afraid to make the wrong decision? Every breakthrough in your life will come after a moment of decision. Every transformation begins when you say, "This is the direction I choose," and then you move. Even if you're unsure, even if you're scared, even if you don't know every step. Because here's what billionaires have learned. Commitment creates clarity. Movement creates momentum. Decisions create destiny. The faster you decide, the faster you grow. The faster you commit, the faster the universe responds. And the faster you move, the faster opportunities multiply around you. Topic 8. Billionaires cultivate unbreakable self-belief, even when the world doubts them. If there is one internal force that determines the trajectory of a person's success more than talent, money, opportunity, or intelligence, it is self-belief. Not the fragile type of belief that depends on external validation, but the kind of belief that feels unshakable, immovable, almost unreasonable to anyone watching from the outside. Billionaires carry this kind of belief within them like a pulse. They trust their vision before anyone else sees it. They trust their potential before anyone else understands it. They trust their path even when the world tells them they are going in the wrong direction. This isn't arrogance, this is alignment. This is self-awareness at the highest level. This is the inner foundation that every extraordinary creator stands upon. Look at Walt Disney, a man whose dreams were ridiculed, dismissed, rejected, and criticized more times than most people could endure. He faced bankruptcy, betrayal, legal battles, and humiliation. He was told his ideas were childish, unrealistic, and financially irresponsible. He was told that no one would watch full-length animated films. He was told that Disneyland was a foolish mistake. But Disney didn't build an empire because he was right. He built an empire because he believed. He believed when banks said no. He believed when studios laughed. He believed when his own team questioned his sanity. His self-belief became the gravitational force that pulled his dreams into reality. This pattern repeats throughout the history of wealth and innovation. The world doubts pioneers because pioneers walk where no one has walked before. The world doubts disruptors because disruptors create things no one has imagined yet. The world doubts visionaries because visionaries speak in a language that only the future understands. If you wait for others to believe in you before you act, you will never step into greatness. Billionaires learned this early. They do not seek permission to believe in themselves. Take Henry Ford. Before the Model T changed everything, he was mocked for believing that everyday people, not just the wealthy, could own a car. The experts told him it was impossible. Manufacturing was too expensive. The market was too small. The logistics were too complicated. But Ford didn't seek validation. He sought solutions. His belief in his vision was so strong that it became a catalyst for innovation. He created the assembly line, revolutionized manufacturing, and reshaped society forever. Self-belief is not just an attitude, it is a strategy. It is the invisible momentum behind every bold choice, every risk, every leap of faith. When people doubt themselves, they hesitate, they shrink, they negotiate with their dreams. They accept smaller opportunities because they assume they cannot handle bigger ones. But self-belief liberates you. It makes you courageous, resourceful, and persistent. It pushes you forward even when doubt whispers in your ear that you're not ready. Look at Oprah Winfrey once again. Every step of her journey required a level of self-belief that defied her circumstances. She believed she could succeed in media despite entering an industry that didn't want to see someone like her thrive. She believed she could build her own company, produce her own shows, and own her own platform despite being told she should stay in her lane. Her belief in her purpose didn't just elevate her career, it elevated millions of people around the world. Self-belief is contagious. It inspires others. It becomes a force that rearranges reality. Self-belief becomes most powerful in the moments when external evidence is weakest. Anyone can believe in themselves when things are going well, when opportunities are flowing, when success is visible. But billionaires believe in themselves most intensely when the world says they shouldn't. They believe during failures. They believe during losses. They believe during confusion. Their belief is not dependent on conditions. It is rooted in identity. They don't say, "I'll believe in myself when I succeed." They say, "I succeed because I believe in myself." Look at someone like J.K. Rowling. Before she became a billionaire author, she was a struggling single mother battling depression and poverty. Every publisher rejected her manuscript, but she believed in the world she had created. She believed in the characters. She believed in the magic. And that belief was strong enough to endure endless rejection until finally, one publisher said yes. One yes changed her entire life. But that yes would never have come without the persistence that self-belief creates. This kind of belief is a choice, not a gift. It is something you cultivate, nurture, strengthen, and protect. It is something you build through repetition, through courage, through taking small steps that prove to yourself what you are capable of. Most people wait for confidence. Billionaires create confidence. They choose to trust themselves. They act their way into belief by showing up again and again, even on the days when self-doubt feels louder than possibility. But here is the deeper truth. Self-belief must be bigger than your fear. Fear will always be present. Self-doubt will always whisper. But belief must lead. Belief must be the voice that speaks louder than the internal critic. Billionaires don't eliminate fear. They overpower it with faith in themselves. They build emotional evidence that they can handle challenges. They gather proof that they can survive failure. They remember their past victories, their strengths, their resilience, their growth. They use these memories as fuel to reinforce the identity that says, "I can, I will, I must." Self-belief is not blind ignorance. It is spiritual intelligence. It is the soul recognizing its potential and insisting on expressing it. It is the mind refusing to surrender to limitation. It is the heart choosing destiny over comfort. When you develop this kind of belief, life begins to open for you in ways that feel almost miraculous. You attract opportunities because you radiate certainty. You inspire trust because you trust yourself. You move through the world with a presence that says, "I know who I am becoming." The world responds to certainty. Wealth responds to certainty. People respond to certainty. And certainty begins with belief. Not belief in perfection, not belief in easy success, but belief in your ability to grow, adapt, learn, and rise. So, let me ask you something, and answer honestly. Do you believe in yourself enough to pursue the life you truly want? Do you believe in your ideas enough to bring them to life? Do you believe in your purpose enough to withstand criticism, rejection, and doubt? Because here is the truth. Your life will expand in proportion to your self-belief. If you believe in yourself a little, you will grow a little. If you believe in yourself halfway, you will grow halfway. But if you believe in yourself fully, deeply, relentlessly, unapologetically, you will step into a level of success that most people only dream about. Topic 9. Billionaires turn failure into momentum, while others let it become a dead end. Failure is one of the most misunderstood forces in the world. Most people treat failure like a verdict, a full stop, a sign that the dream is over. Billionaires treat failure like raw material. They take the pieces of what went wrong, examine them without ego, reshape them with insight, and use them as stepping stones toward something greater. The same event that breaks the average person becomes jet fuel for those who rise to extraordinary levels of success. The difference isn't in the failure itself. The difference is in the interpretation. Billionaires understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path to success. Think about Steve Jobs. When he was fired from Apple, the very company he created, most people assumed his career was finished. He was humiliated publicly, rejected by the board, and forced to watch someone else run the company he built from scratch. For many, that kind of blow would have ended everything. But Jobs didn't let failure define him. He transformed it. He took the pain, the frustration, the disappointment, and he channeled it into creation. He founded Next. He invested in Pixar. He developed some of the most groundbreaking technologies of his era. And ironically, it was this chapter of failure that led him back to Apple, where he then led the company into one of the greatest corporate transformations in history. This is what billionaires do. They don't collapse from failure. They evolve through it. Or look at Jeff Bezos during Amazon's early years. The company launched product after product that failed. Amazon auctions failed. Amazon destinations failed. The Fire Phone failed catastrophically. But Bezos didn't attach shame to failure. He attached meaning. He used each failure as a classroom. He studied the lessons, applied the insights, and allowed them to fuel future innovation. Without those failures, Amazon Prime, AWS, Alexa, and the entire ecosystem that defines Amazon today might never have existed. Billionaires know that failure is information, something to analyze, not internalize. This perspective is not natural for most people. From childhood, we've been conditioned to avoid failure at all costs. In school, failure is punished. In society, failure is embarrassing. In families, failure is often misunderstood. People grow up believing that failure means they aren't good enough, capable enough, or worthy enough. That belief becomes a cage that limits their potential for the rest of their lives. Billionaires break that conditioning by redefining the meaning of failure entirely. To them, failure is a sign of progress, evidence of action, and a necessary experience on the journey to greatness. Take Elon Musk. SpaceX failed multiple rocket launches, catastrophically, publicly, and expensively. Each explosion cost millions of dollars and years of work. Most companies, most leaders, most human beings would have given up. But Musk didn't interpret failure as defeat. He interpreted it as data. He used every failed launch to refine the next one. He remained emotionally grounded, scientifically focused, and relentlessly committed to the mission. That mindset led SpaceX to become the first private company to send astronauts into orbit, reshaping the aerospace industry forever. Musk didn't succeed because he avoided failure. He succeeded because he used failure. Failure becomes powerful when you remove emotion from the interpretation. Billionaires don't attach their identity to mistakes. They don't say, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." They say, "I failed, therefore I learned." This is the psychological shift that transforms failure from something destructive into something constructive. And this emotional discipline is one of the reasons they can take risks. The average person is too afraid to take. When failure is not a threat to your identity, it loses its power to control your future. Look at the story of Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks. Long before Starbucks became a global brand, he tried to pitch his vision, a vision inspired by the Italian coffeehouse tradition, to dozens of investors. He was rejected over and over again. Some investors told him he didn't understand the coffee business. Others said Americans would never pay premium prices for specialty coffee. Rejection piled up like bricks. But Schultz didn't interpret rejection as a dead end. He saw it as refinement. He believed that if the vision was clear, the path would eventually reveal itself. And he was right. Today, Starbucks has thousands of stores worldwide, and Schultz's commitment to iteration, not discouragement, is one of the reasons it succeeded. The world rarely rewards the person who never fails. It rewards the person who fails, learns, and persists. It rewards resilience. It rewards the courage to get back up one more time than you fall. Billionaires embody this resilience because they understand something essential. The universe tests you before it trusts you. Every setback asks a question. How badly do you want this? How committed are you? How much are you willing to grow? People fail not because they lack talent, but because they misinterpret the test. They think the universe is saying no, when the universe is actually saying not yet. Failure only becomes permanent when you stop moving. As long as you are still learning, adjusting, and evolving, failure is nothing more than feedback. It's a signal pointing you toward the next step. Billionaires treat failure like a compass. They don't run from it. They read it. They examine it. They use it as guidance to improve their strategy, refine their vision, and strengthen their execution. There is also a spiritual dimension to the billionaire relationship with failure. They understand that failure breaks the ego. It humbles you. It strengthens your character. It sharpens your intuition. It aligns you with your purpose by removing what is no longer serving you. Failure is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the furnace in which the strongest versions of ourselves are forged. When you embrace this truth, failure becomes empowering instead of frightening. Think about Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison wasn't being poetic. He was being literal. Every unsuccessful attempt brought him closer to the right one. That is the mindset of someone who refuses to give failure the final word. So let me ask you, what failure still haunts you? What mistake do you still interpret as a sign that you aren't enough? What setback have you allowed to diminish your confidence? It's time to redefine your relationship with failure. It's time to see it as a chapter, not the ending. Your failures are not the story. They are the training, the refining fire, the education, the catalyst. You are not failing. You are forming. And if you continue moving, adjusting, learning, and persevering, every failure you've ever experienced will serve you. Because billionaires don't avoid failure. They build their empires on the wisdom it gives them. Topic 10. The moment you decide to think like a billionaire, your life will never be the same. There comes a moment, a quiet, private, deeply personal moment, when a person realizes that the gap between who they are and who they want to become is not defined by circumstance, intelligence, luck, or opportunity, but by mindset. A moment when they finally understand that success is not reserved for the chosen few, but for the few who choose themselves. This moment is the turning point. And if you are still here, listening, absorbing, feeling the truth inside these words, then something inside you is already shifting. You are beginning to see the world the way billionaires do, not as it is, but as it could be, not as a place of limitation, but as a landscape of infinite possibility. The greatest secret of billionaires is not their wealth, it is their worldview, their internal operating system, the set of beliefs, habits, emotional patterns, and mental frameworks that allow them to expand far beyond the boundaries that stop most people. They are not playing the same game as everyone else. They are not reacting to life. They are designing it. They are not waiting for opportunity. They are creating it. They are not asking, "What can I get?" but "Who must I become to create the life I envision?" This is the essence of their power. And this power is something you can begin cultivating the moment you decide to shift your mindset. Think of the stories you've heard throughout this journey. Bezos seeing the future before the world believed in it. Oprah transforming pain into purpose. Elon Musk turning impossible industries into new realities. Sarah Blakely pushing forward through rejection with unwavering belief. Walt Disney dreaming worlds into existence when everyone else saw limitations. These individuals were not handed their destinies. They crafted them. They sculpted them from the inside out. They built their empires from a foundation of resilience, clarity, imagination, emotional mastery, self-belief, and strategic execution. And here is the truth that most people will never accept. The mind that creates wealth is available to everyone. The principles are universal. The tools are universal. The psychology is universal. The difference is that most people never activate it. They never give themselves permission to step into a higher identity. They don't believe they are capable, worthy, or ready. They wait for proof before they act. They wait for approval before they move. They wait for circumstances to change before they change themselves. But billionaires operate in reverse. They act before proof. They move before approval. They change themselves and then watch as circumstances reorganize around their new identity. You are capable of the same transformation. You are capable of seeing opportunity where others see fear. You are capable of mastering your emotions instead of being controlled by them. You are capable of building networks that elevate your potential, systems that build wealth for you, and habits that shape you into a person who attracts success rather than chases it. You are capable of thinking in terms of scale, making bold decisions, and embracing failure as a source of wisdom rather than shame. You are capable of cultivating the kind of self-belief that makes the world lean in and take notice. Everything you admire in billionaires begins in the mind long before it appears in the bank account. It begins with a vision so strong that it pulls them through every setback, a commitment so deep that excuses wither in its presence, a sense of destiny so powerful that the world eventually bends to meet it. And if you allow yourself to truly internalize these principles, your life will begin to reorganize itself in ways that feel almost magical. This is not motivation. This is mechanics. The mechanics of human potential. The mechanics of wealth creation. The mechanics of identity transformation. When you change how you think, you change how you act. When you change how you act, you change your results. When you change your results consistently, you change your entire life. It is inevitable. It is physics. It is psychological gravity. The question is no longer, what do billionaires know that you don't? You know now. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the truth behind each story. You've absorbed the mindset that shapes their success. The real question, the only question, is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let it wash over you and fade? Will you return to old patterns, old limitations, old identities that no longer serve you? Or will you step forward, even if your voice shakes, and begin living from the version of yourself you know you are meant to become? Because somewhere deep within you, a higher version is waiting. A version that thinks boldly, acts decisively, dreams unapologetically, and rises relentlessly. A version that sees challenges as invitations to expand. A version that trusts its intuition, believes in its purpose, and moves toward its vision with the quiet certainty of someone who knows they are destined for more. The journey to success is not a straight line. It is a series of evolutions, tiny shifts, bold leaps, moments of clarity followed by moments of courage. You are not required to become a billionaire to think like one. You are simply required to adopt the principles that elevate your life, elevate your choices, elevate your standards, and elevate your future. You are required to choose growth over comfort, possibility over fear, momentum over hesitation, and faith over doubt. And when you begin living from this mindset, even in small ways, you will notice something remarkable. Life will begin to respond. Opportunities will appear where there were once walls. People will sense your certainty and want to align with you. Decisions will become easier, clearer, more aligned. Doors that were once closed will open. New paths will unfold. You will feel a shift in your energy, your confidence, your sense of direction. This is what happens when you start thinking like someone who expects success instead of hoping for it. Your future is not defined by your past. Your potential is not limited by your present. Your destiny is waiting for you to claim it, but it will not wait forever. The moment you decide to elevate your mindset, your habits, your beliefs, and your standards, everything begins to change. Not instantly, but inevitably. That is the promise of transformation. That is the promise of alignment. That is the promise of the mindset you have now been initiated into. So here, at the end of this journey, I leave you with a simple but life-altering truth. The moment you decide to think like a billionaire, your life will never be the same. Because once your mind expands, it cannot shrink back to its old dimensions. Once you taste possibility, you cannot pretend you are powerless. Once you awaken to who you can become, you cannot unsee that potential. The question now is not whether you can rise, you can. The question is whether you will. Before you go, take a moment to honor the version of yourself you're becoming. And if this video awakened something in you, clarity, courage, possibility, or a new standard for your life, then don't let that momentum fade. Make this the moment you commit to your own evolution. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a message that elevates your mindset and expands your capacity for success and prosperity. Like this video if it spoke to your soul, comment with the insight that resonated most deeply with you, and share it with someone who's ready to rise with you. Together, we're building a global community of thinkers and creators who refuse to settle for anything less than their highest potential. Your next level starts now. Let's rise.